We all feel them. The forbidden, the sinful, the taboo. Behaviors that divide cultures and inspire fear. But our differences may be what make us all human. Boys and girls, men and women. From the moment of birth, we are defined as male or female.
You know, your gender would make you man and woman.
It's an biological difference between a man and a woman.
But around the world, some people live in a gray zone between the sexes. Their communities either find a way to accept them or declare them taboo. In this hour, trek into the Albanian countryside to find some hardy men who are actually women. Fly to an island in Thailand with a Californian who hopes to return home as the opposite sex. Meet a character in India whose main distinction is having no sex at all. And wonder, what if the only way you could feel accepted and become your true self was to change your gender? Albania is a country in transition. A decade ago, it emerged from a half-century of communism as the poorest nation in Europe. By tradition, this is a patriarchal society, but here in the capital, Tirana, women freely choose their professions, buy their own property, and live independent lives.
It's very hard for men to accept that women want to progress, they want to be independent. It's very hard for them, but that's what's happening.
This year, everything is changing, and I think women have the upper hand now. There's not a society on the face of the earth where gender is an important determinant of people's everyday lives, of their position in the social structure, and so on.
Dan Fessler is an anthropologist at the University of California in Los Angeles.
Everywhere, gender and gender identity matters very much.
Here in Albania, gender identity can take an extraordinary turn. Antonia Young is a British writer who's traveled here regularly since 1989. With her guide, Blendi Dibra, Antonia is on a mission to find some Albanian women who have literally become men. They're known as sworn virgins.
A sworn virgin is a person, mostly in Albania, but also in Bosnia and southern Serbia. This is a woman who has sworn to live her life as a man. And the reason that this happens is really a social situation where there are not enough men in the family.
Antonia's book, Women Who Become Men, provides a rare glimpse into their world. But even here in the capital, urban Albanians aren't quite sure sworn virgins exist.
I've not heard of them, but I can guess what it means. Like they are sworn that they are a virgin, and if they aren't, what happens then? They get separated or they get killed? No, I don't think so.
Antonia will travel to northern Albania to follow up on some of the women in her book. But why would anyone willingly change their gender?
In a society where women don't have a lot of potential outlets, where they can't engage in behaviors that are normally associated with men, they're more likely to make this kind of transformation.
Hillary Crane is an anthropologist at Tufts University in the U.S.
Sometimes they're raised to do stuff from birth, and sometimes they make that choice later in life.
While women's rights are gaining a foothold in the capital, in northern Albania traditions die hard. Gender roles remain rigid. Men maintain power both politically and socially. The only exceptions are sworn virgins. The practice of becoming a sworn virgin dates back to medieval times, and a code of ethics called the Kanun.
The Kanun is a set of laws which has been passed down since the 15th century when it was codified, and these laws have completely guided people's lives all through these centuries and continue to do so.
According to the Kanun, only men inherit wealth. Women become their property upon marriage. The only way a woman can have the rights of a man is to take an oath of celibacy and become a sworn virgin.
It is a family that needs someone to take on that masculine role to inherit the family property or the family business or the family name. And so a daughter will take on the role that a son normally would.
Many people thought the practice of becoming a sworn virgin had died out, until Antonia decided to investigate for herself. She first met Pashka Sokoli in 1994.
I was really amazed when I first met Pashka because I'd heard of this tradition and of course I hadn't met anybody like that.
It's looking good in the sunshine.
She looked so masculine, it was really quite extraordinary. Such a contrast to women and, well, pretty much like the men really.
Although Pashka decided on her own to become a sworn virgin, it was a choice born from a cruel fate.
My childhood had many sufferings because my father died when my mother was still pregnant with me. When I was 1 year old, my mother left me and I grew up with my uncle and father's mother.
She was their sole provider. If she married, she'd have to live with her husband and abandon her uncle and grandmother. Then, her uncle got sick and was sent to a hospital miles away.
As a woman, I had no possibility to drive. I needed to walk, to travel a lot, to dress with trousers, and not to be seen as a woman.
As Pashka recalled the memories, it was almost too much to bear.
Always we had to work. Always we were crying in our lives. I didn't have a pleasant time. I suffered a lot in my travels and going to other houses, and these were bad things for me. I can remember working as a young woman, working for others and taking care of others. It was quite a difficult life.
By age 35, unmarried and alone, Pashka had tired of her hard life as a woman. She opted to become a sworn virgin.
When I made the decision at this time, it was quite difficult because no woman was wearing trousers. The whole village was upset, but I wouldn't listen to anyone. It was my decision and I wanted to do this.
For Pashka, it was a choice about gender, not sex. Lesbianism in rural Albania is an unknown concept. Their culture recognizes only traditional male-female relations.
Women marry into their husband's family, and from the time they leave their own home, they're the most junior person in that family, and they have to do everything that's bid them by everybody within that family.
Pashka says she has no regrets about not having children, nor does she feel she's missed intimacy with a man.
You might think that they would have, that the sworn virgins would have some sort of sexual urges, and maybe they do, maybe they suppress them. Sex is such a minor part of life that in the society of the very traditional rural areas, it's not something that they themselves can imagine.
Coming up, a sworn virgin whose choice sets her free. And later, a Californian makes a trip to Thailand, hoping to come home as the opposite sex. And outcasts in India whose lack of gender is said to give them supernatural powers. Anthropologist Antonia Young is trekking across Albania in search of sworn virgins, women who become men.
Hey, here we are. Here we are.
Antonia first met Lula Ivanai in 1996. Lula lives with her extended family in the village of Basiri, not far from the Adriatic coast.
Lula was the 9th child in a family of 11, and she grew up with all these sisters.
Lula does have one brother, Pieter, so her choice to become a sworn virgin wasn't to support her family. It had more to do with her own sense of personal empowerment. As a young girl, Lula felt she had more in common with little boys and wanted to do the things they did.
Since I was a small child, I always used to play with boys, with balls and boy things. I never used to play with girls. Since then, I always liked the idea of being this way.
At 15, Lula was sent to a technical school to become a mechanic. It was then that she made up her mind to live her entire life as a man. Albanian society allowed her to make the switch, as long as she moved completely from one gender to the other.
In all cultures, people have a sense of what a man ought to be, what a woman ought to be. And the clearer these distinctions are, the more orderly the society seems to be functioning.
Shala Hayeri is Director of Women's Studies at Boston University in the U.S.
If you are a sworn virgin, you probably have all kinds of prestige. You're being admitted to spaces, to places, to functions, to roles that very many women, even in your background, may not be able to do it.
With her oath of celibacy, Lula took on a male persona with masculine traits and gestures. From that point on, society treated her as a man.
The best advantage is you're strong like a man, you're serious, you're freer than a woman, and you have more sincere relationships. These things are the most important.
Lula's family ultimately approved of her decision, even though her brother was cautious.
Lula, what can I say? I wanted her to have a normal life, but I saw this was her will. That's why I didn't say anything. And I thought it would be in my favor when she became a man, because when I die, there will be someone else to take care of the children. When you are an uncle, the link is stronger with the children than with the aunt.
Although some might see Lula's choice as a sacrifice, she claims to have no regrets about foregoing marriage and children. For her, being a sworn virgin gives her freedom.
Lula is very clearly seen as a man within the village. First of all, she goes and drinks in the cafe with men, and she sits down quite comfortably with the men there.
Although Lula lives happily as a sworn virgin, she admits that strict gender roles left her little choice at the time. But today, Albanian society is slowly changing.
In the past, it was the mentality, the concept that women should stay with women, and people judged you because they didn't like the idea that I worked with men and did a job that men did. But now, women are more equal, and they have more equal rights. They're driving cars, doing other jobs, and things are changing.
Like Lula, Hashka feels that today's generation should not follow in her footsteps.
To no young girls, I would recommend what I have done. Because now life is more open. The society is more civilized. Schools, better education. There are many choices. But in case they want to take a decision as I took it, I would recommend 100 times to think about it. Because once you make it, you should stick to it.
Even if the society doesn't accept the change is inevitable. And what's the role of the man? What's the role of the woman? Not only changes, not only is different from society to society, but even changes within a particular society.
Antonia believes there are only about 100 sworn virgins left in northern Albania. But as change comes to this remote and wild corner of the world, she thinks the practice may not survive.
I would imagine that sworn virgins will die out in the end, but I think it's still going to take quite a while.
When people change gender roles, they often seek their society's blessing. But in some cultures, dressing and acting the part isn't enough.
Arguably, our psychology has evolved to recognize the difference between male and female and to act differently towards individuals of each of those two sexes. Very small children know the difference between boys and girls. In fact, one of the first questions that they'll ask about any creature is it a boy or is it a girl?
Sometimes that's a more difficult question than it seems. What would you do if you felt trapped in the wrong body and surgery offered the only way out? In California, the American gender divide is always on display. Americans like to think of themselves as a tolerant society, but when it comes to gender, most attitudes are set.
When a child is born, we have assumptions about what they're going to turn out to be based on what bodies they're born with. We expect that they will grow up to be strong men or good mothers. And as soon as the child starts to act in a way that's a little bit different than expectations, we get a little bit uncomfortable.
The most frequent targets of that discomfort are homosexuals who face discrimination and sometimes violence. Still, in recent years, Americans have grown more accepting of gay and lesbian lifestyles. But there's another group that doesn't fit into the usual gender roles, and they remain among America's outcasts. In Bakersfield, California, one of them has made a life-changing decision.
I can't wait to get overseas, get the surgery done, and get home again. I love my home here in Bakersfield.
Dawn Kay is leaving home today for a trip to Thailand.
I have butterflies. I mean, I think anybody would have butterflies before a trip halfway around the world. Maybe I should take my bathing suit.
47 years old, Dawn leads a life that is considered taboo in America.
There we go.
By U.S. law, she is a he.
I was born anatomically male. I've lived the majority of my life as a male.
Dawn is not gay. She's what's known as a transsexual, or transgendered person.
A transsexual is someone who is born with one particular sex and then decides that they want to live the life of the other sex. Probably in a lot of societies, people would be uncomfortable with somebody who wants to make that change and consider it wrong.
To Dawn, what's wrong is that she was born in the body of a boy.
My old name was Danny, and that's the name I was born with. My mother it's her wish that I would continue using that. To her, I'll always be her little boy.
As a child, little Danny was pressured to fit into the usual gender role. One Christmas burns in her memory.
When I was about 8 years old, I was caught playing Barbie dolls with my nieces. I mean, it's kind of like one of those memories you reflect back on the earliest time that I was actually thinking in the role of a female.
Her parents swept in and snatched away the doll.
I didn't know that I'd done anything wrong. They acted like I'd done some major sin. And the following year for Christmas, I got about $200 worth of Tonka toys.
It's a struggle to get beyond the taboos that we have long held in our society. It's all around you in society. It's in our nursery rhymes. It's in every form of indoctrination that a little kid is exposed to. You would need to go back and rewrite all of the children's books and retell all of the nursery rhymes.
After that Christmas, by all appearances, Danny grew up a model of manhood. He finished high school, joined the military, and served 3 years in South Korea.
I attempted to live in a role that was pleasing to my family.
He met and married a Korean woman. They had 2 children, but for Danny, it couldn't continue.
You put 2 women in the same room and it's just not going to work out. There was fighting, there was domestic abuse, and it was repressing my own desires.
Eventually, Danny sought out a therapist who gave a rare diagnosis. While studies claim 1 in 10 people is homosexual, only about 1 in 12,000 is transsexual. By that measure, the U.S. is home to about 20,000 transsexuals. Danny became Dawn. She cut off all ties to her family, fearing the sex change would confuse her children. But she soon learned that for many, transsexuality is taboo.
Why have to go and change your sex? I mean, this is the way God creates you. You should interfere with it. If you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman.
There's more to this than walking down the street, being stereotyped as a whore or prostitute, being called a faggot.
We don't allow for a lot of gray area in our society. We are uncomfortable with men who take on 2 female roles and women who take on 2 masculine roles, although of course that's been changing recently.
Determined to be accepted as a woman, Dawn got breast implants and took female hormones. But many transsexuals find it difficult to hide their original gender. They retain a male physique and continue to grow facial hair. Many live in constant fear of humiliation. The only solution, Dawn believes, is to remove her male genitalia.
It's my wish, given all things going well, to have a functioning female sexual organ. I will be able to have relationships with a male. I will be able to totally live the role of a female in my life.
From a friend, Dawn heard about a doctor who specializes in sexual reassignment surgery, what used to be known as a sex change operation. Having it done in Thailand will cost Dawn $9,500, far less than the price in America. After 14 years of frustration, Dawn is headed halfway around the world for relief. Some might consider her goal abnormal or even sinful, but for many transsexuals, surgery offers the only logical solution.
Son some individuals just so profoundly experience themselves as members of the opposite gender from their own biological sex that the only way for them to be fully comfortable and lead fully rewarding lives is to alter the exterior equipment.
Coming up, on a luxurious island in Thailand, Dawn goes under the knife and she'll never be the same.
No more male genital organs.
And later, Indian eunuchs claim supernatural powers. Every year, thousands of tourists flood into Phuket Island in Thailand for its beaches and Thai massage. And every year, about 70 return home a different sex. They are reborn here at Phuket International Hospital. Dr. Sangwan Kunaporn has performed sexual reassignment surgery for 10 years. And while he admits the cause of transsexuality is unknown, his patients have much in common.
One thing that's similar is that these people want to be another sex since childhood. Many of them can recall when they were 2 or 3 years old that they want to be in another sex role.
Many of Dr. Sangwan's patients come from the US and Europe, but they face more hurdles than those from Thailand. US law requires years of psychotherapy before someone like Dawn K can have surgery. Thai transsexuals face no such restrictions, which may be why the average age of Dr. Sangwan's Thai patients is only 28. From America, the average age is 50.
The eldest patient of mine who came to Phuket to have this surgery, she was 74 years old.
To Dr. Sangwan, it's a sign of how powerfully some transsexuals feel about changing their biology.
Thank you very much.
Dawn faces a complicated and potentially risky operation. Along with removing her male genitalia, Dr. Sangwan will craft a full-feeling vagina. If successful, Dawn will be able to experience female orgasm. Transsexuals are drawn to Phuket by more than Dr. Sangwan's skill as a surgeon. Thais in general are far more tolerant of gender bending than Westerners.
Believing in Thailand is more open. The transsexual have more acceptance, easier acceptance, more compromise, not like in Western country.
At the Simon Cabaret, pick a star and guess the sex. They're all transgender.
In my experience, Asian cultures have been more accepting of transsexuality. That a person's social role, one's gender, doesn't necessarily need to be fixed to one's body. It's much more allowable for somebody to make a transformation to another gender.
For Dawn, it's a revelation. The next morning, Dawn arrives for the operation, excited but tense. She'll be in the hospital for at least 3 weeks.
Are you nervous?
Yeah,
Are you nervous?
I'm still nervous.
To calm her nerves, Dr. Sangwan takes her to meet another American patient. Jamie Booth is about to go home after a successful but painful operation.
Cher will not be your friend. First week after surgery, first week after you get out.
A doctor from New Orleans, Jamie has been living as a woman for 4 years. And like Dawn, her journey to self-discovery was a difficult one.
I tried to live a very normal male life for quite a while. I even grew a beard when I was in my late 20s. But all during this time, there was always a sense that it really wasn't me. Felt like I was living 2 lives. Let me know.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you again. You're very welcome, sweetie. I'll see you later. Take care. There's always debate about how this happened. Was it because your mom dropped you on your head when you were a kid, or is it because of some genetic thing? We all know about X and Y chromosomes, but there's a lot more to the genetic makeup of people.
Okay.
Well, I didn't choose to become a transsexual. You have to be out of your mind to choose to become a transsexual.
Some might argue they should still accept their original anatomy.
But then anatomy is not destiny, as it was said by Freud. Men in different societies behave differently, women behave differently. So even though our roles are derived from biology and physiology and anatomy, but then they diverge tremendously.
While most tourists are out working on their suntans, Dawn prepares for the biggest moment of her life.
Just ready to get this thing done.
There is no going back. the surgery is irreversible.
Morning, Dawn. Are you ready?
Yes. Okay.
All right, let's start.
Like any operation, sexual reassignment involves risks, mostly from infection. But Dr. Sangwan has never lost a patient. He removes Dawn's penis, but leaves the nerve that will allow her to feel sexual pleasure.
If we can maintain the nerve and the head of the penis, just some part of it, the patient will have a clitoris that has sensation. Not all the surgeons who do this kind of surgery will use this technique because it's more complicated, more time consuming.
He creates an opening that will serve as the new vagina. Later, he'll cut out a portion of Dawn's colon to act as the vaginal canal.
No more male genital organ. No more.
5 hours pass. The surgery has gone well. Almost immediately, Dawn rouses.
Everything finished. Very good. Just need to sleep.
For the next 2 weeks, Dawn is bedridden, but recovering. Back in the U.S., in New Orleans, Louisiana, Jamie Booth is back to normal life, making breakfast for her son Eric.
It's nice to be home. It's a tremendous amount of security, realizing now that every part of my body matches, the F on my passport.
In America, New Orleans is considered more accepting of transsexuals. But Jamie knows there are many who view what she's done as a sin.
We live in a diverse world, and there are people that I know that think every gay man or every lesbian woman is going straight to hell. Just because I'm different doesn't mean that I'm not good and not worthy. I'm sorry, but sometimes it just takes being understanding.
I think it is hard to shed your sexuality or to assume a different gender role. It's a process. It takes a while, and it requires a lot of pumping from all other institutions, public, private, family, what have you, to make that person to be acknowledged as one sex or another.
Morning. How are you?
I'm doing great.
2 weeks after surgery, Dawn will finally get a look at the new her.
I think I will remove the bracing today. You want to see?
Oh, yes.
Here is the vaginal opening, the vulva. Here is the clitoris.
With the genitals of a male, you're considered a male. Or between two different worlds. And it's not an easy place to be. Oh, that's too good. That's perfect. Perfect. This is the way it's supposed to be. Anything I should not do?
Nothing. You can do everything. Alright.
Thank you. You've made my life.
For Dawn, this is a new beginning. Her new gender is about more than identity. It's also about love.
What I'm looking for is a solid, sound relationship with a heterosexual guy. It would really be nice to have a relationship with a guy who wasn't wanting to wear a dress. So it isn't the end for me, but it's the end of one part of my life, and it's the beginning of a new part. It's a rebirth for me.
Sexual reassignment surgery is an option in some cultures for those who feel trapped between the sexes. But other societies have developed an entirely different solution, one that gives the person not only a new identity, but also supernatural powers.
This is an individual who is different in one of the most important and profound ways that someone can be different, in that they are neither clearly male nor clearly female.
What if the only way you could feel accepted was to give up your gender completely? More than 1 billion men and women call India home. But hidden inside inside this crowded mix of cultures lives a taboo band of people, singing and dancing across the subcontinent. They are neither male nor female, but a completely different gender, the third sex. Mona Ahmed is a living taboo.
If I had another life, then I would just pray to God and ask Him to make me either a complete man or a complete woman, and not a mixture, not an in-between. This life is no life.
Mona belongs to a group known in India as Hijras or eunuchs. Indians consider Hijras to be an entirely separate gender.
The third gender in India is understood as a man who might be an hermaphrodite, homosexual, impotent, who thinks that he has a calling. He is no longer a man. He cannot live within his own skin as a man.
Like most eunuchs, Mona was born physically male, but in her heart, she felt very different.
From the soul that is within me, I have always felt like a girl, and I have never considered myself a boy.
Sex change operations and homosexuality are illegal in India. To find a place in society, Mona embraced her only real option. She joined the eunuchs. But her choice came at a steep price. Mona had her male sexual organs completely removed. She was physically transformed. Body hair vanished, her voice changed, and she developed breasts.
Genital mutilation as such is very, very common around the world, but that's very, very different than removing an individual's source of male or female hormones. And it's really removing the hormones that essentially results in the long-term physical differences that are important in being a eunuch.
With her genitals removed, there was no turning back. Mona belonged to the Hijras, or eunuchs. To many cultures, the idea of a third gender might be hard to accept.
Religions are very important. Christianity, Islam, Judaism are a lot more strict in terms of assigning gender roles and gender behavior. Whereas in other religions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism, you would have a lot greater tolerance for variations.
Yet eunuchs once were common in many parts of the world. They made ideal harem gods for Muslim rulers. In Italy, they were called castrati and performed in operas into the 19th century. Though eunuchs are all by memory in most of the world, India is home to more than 500,000 of them. For 40 years, Mona made her living the only way a eunuch can. As a performer, she sang and danced at wedding ceremonies and birth celebrations.
There are outcasts in India, but they're expected to exist. It's all right that there is a third gender. There is an allowance made for it in the thinking of the culture, that there would be a third gender.
Coming up, the eunuchs show off their powers, which are said to either bless or curse. In India, eunuchs live on the fringes of society. Over time, they forged their own families with values and rules of conduct. Today, Mona Ahmed is going to visit her eunuch family. She's partly supported by her two disciples, Nergis and Sonam.
We don't have any children of our own, so these are the children.
They are all members of the same eunuch family, and for many years they lived together under one roof.
In India, the long-standing existence of sizable numbers of eunuchs means that there are individuals who have the opportunity to band together. And I think the fact that other people view them with such ambivalence gives them both emotional and economic incentive to unite.
The trio sets out for a neighborhood where Nergis and Sonam often work. They scout the streets, canvassing for work and jesting with potential customers. After a bit of searching, they hit pay dirt. A young couple has yet to receive the blessings of a eunuch. To ensure their livelihood, eunuchs rely on more than their charm. Because they are seen as neither male nor female, a supernatural quality surrounds them. They're believed by many Indians to possess the power to both bless and curse.
There is power in their blessings. Even prayers to God aren't as powerful as the blessings of the eunuchs. In some cultures, individuals who occupy a third gender, they're seen as somehow supernaturally powerful. Often it is the case that their specialness is seen as deriving from the fact that they combine two elements that are normally quite different. That is, they have aspects of both maleness and femaleness about them.
Eunuchs depend on that special status. They make their living performing at weddings and birth celebrations. Sonam attends to the customary blessing, while Nergis and Mona joke with the family about future children. Though their antics are amusing to some, many Indians revile eunuchs.
Sometimes we get scared of the hijras. We will go mad and run away because of their behavior.
If we don't give them money, they will seize us and rape us.
If we don't give them any money, they humiliate us in public. There's nothing we can do.
The more modernized, shall we say, or westernized the society becomes, the less tolerance they have for these characters who behave rowdy and who appear to be uncouth and who are loud. They think of them as embarrassment. And on their parts, the eunuchs or the hijras are getting very upset because what sustained them economically is taken away from them.
Public animosity is one reason Mona has given up most performing. These days, she spends much of her time expanding her house at the edge of a graveyard.
I'm doing hard work here.
She hopes it will become a haven for other Indian outcasts. Part orphanage, part shelter for the elderly.
I feel in my heart. This is my palace. I'm the queen of this palace. I want to get in there just like Mother Teresa. Yeah, I want to make it a swimming pool. Not a water.
Mona also counsels other sexually ambiguous Indians who have nowhere else to turn. This man is a married father of 3, but he struggles with his true identity.
He is a woman trapped in a man's body. He comes here to talk to me because I understand his problems.
My family says to me, don't go to these places, don't spend time with the eunuchs, go to other places. But what can I do? It's my nature to seek different company.
Mona dreams of a day when Indians see her as more than just a eunuch, but a complete person.
I wish everyone would consider us as humans and not think of us as a third sex. Why should they do that?
Until that day, India's eunuchs will continue as they have for generations, living taboo lives, singing, dancing, and surviving. Most cultures will always have strong opinions about what's considered male and female. To many, anything in between is disturbing.
Anytime you have any change, any difference from what you're used to, that's threatening. And in something as fundamental as gender differences, I think we find that particularly threatening. Because we work hard to maintain our gender differences the way they are.
For those who don't fit in, the choices aren't easy. By seeking out surgery to make their bodies match their feelings, by shedding the past and assuming a new identity, or by joining others in a third gender. These men and women are engaged in a struggle common to all humans. It is a struggle to understand themselves.
How one behaves is always a choice. But I think that what you are is not a choice.
It's also a struggle to be accepted by their societies.
A scientific explanation of human behavior doesn't provide any prescriptions for right and wrong from a moral perspective. Ultimately, I think it's something that individuals and societies as a whole have to decide for themselves.
What some people see as striving for a normal, happy life, others will always call taboo.